Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining in GBA's Biomethane webinar. I would like to start by thanking the organizations of our speakers, A Biogas, EARGAR, Green Tech LLC, IEA Bioenergy, Indian Federation of Green Energy, University College of Cork, Ireland, and the World Biogas Association. I would also like to thank our member countries and international organizations for the continued support. I would like to extend a warm welcome to our esteemed panel, which includes Dr. Bernard Drosk, leader of IA Bioenergy Task 37, Mr. Paul Green, who's Principal Green Tech LLC and founding member of the American Biogas Council, Mr. Alessandro Gardaman, co-founder of Brazilian Biogas Association and chairman of the board of directors at A Biogas, Tim Hamers, Secretary General of European Renewable Gas Registry, Dr. Pradeep Monga, Senior Advisor and Policy Director, World Biogas Association, Dr. Archisman Bose and Dr. Richard O'Shea, professors at University College of Cork. And last but not the least, Mr. Ashish Kumar, who is Vice President IFGE, Vice Chairman IFGE, CBG Producer Forum, and MD of Verbio India. Thank you everyone for joining in again. We will start with Mr. Ashish Kumar. Thank you.
Policy work, but there's a lot of policy work which has been done over the last, I would say, roughly about 2 years. So this is a quick snapshot of where we stand in India across the feedstock types and across the value chain. So to start with, if we look into the biomethane production based on agricultural residue, and which is primarily the waste, the crop residue which is left after the harvesting, and primarily in the northern states. So the government is currently providing support on the procurement of these machinery which is used for the biomass aggregation. The numbers vary, and I'm assuming these charts will be shared, so we don't need to get into the number bit over here. But just to give you an overall impression, the government supports anything ranging from 50 to 65% of the overall the procurement cost to the project developers as well as to the farmers who are associated in the supply chain. So that is a big support to the project developers, because it definitely helps to optimize the feedstock cost. We will look into now the second waste category, that is the municipal solid waste. Now, this is where there are two key aspects. One is the most critical one is the waste segregation, where the state level bodies are expected to provide 90 to 93% of the segregated waste, which is still a challenge in most of the regions, but it has taken off, and we expect that over the next couple of months and 1 or 2 years, these will become more and more stable. The second topic is around the processing fee, which is currently not a standard across all municipalities. So it is there in selected municipalities, and in certain areas there is also reverse bidding or royalties which are paid. So this is still in an early stage at the moment. And then we have the third category of feedstock, primarily the press mud, which is basically a waste which is coming out of sugar mills. Now, for the sugar mill owners, this has really come as a big boon, because earlier, which was really a waste stream, now they're able to monetize this waste stream by production of biomethane. So for the backward integrated plants wherein the feedstock is secured by sugar mills, this is indeed a very, very viable business case. Whereas if there are project developers who are setting up independent or plants in isolation with having no backward linkage to the feedstock, this could still be a topic of commercial agreement or negotiations between the owner as well as the feedstock provider. So this would still be a bit of a evolving stage at the moment. So of the three feedstock types, projects are coming up across the three categories. And this is the part where the policies differ based on the feedstock type what we have. Whereas the midstream and the downstream activities remain constant or remain similar for all feedstock type categories. Now, if we look into the midstream, we have the capital subsidy in the form of central financial assistance, which comes from the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. It is up to 100 million Indian rupees, and it is coming under the Waste to Energy program. So, which translates roughly to about $1.2 million as of now. In addition to the central subsidy, now a very interesting trend which is emerging over the last one or let's say 1.5 years is that the states are also coming out with extremely progressive policies to attract investments. And here the capital subsidy ranges anything between zero point 0.6 to 2.4 million projects per project, which is in addition to what the central assistance is being offered. So this again offers a big boost to the project developers. Then we come to the downstream activities. Now, there again, a lot of action has taken place. We have we have a scheme which is for establishing a grid connectivity for the CBG projects. Now, this scheme was launched end of last year. I think it was around September 24. So it is again still about roughly about 6 months plus. The first few projects are taking off. So the grid establishment procedure, which has to be conducted by the city gas distribution companies, is being initiated. So this is again a very key aspect of to establish the viability of the projects. Without the grid connectivity, especially if it is medium or large scale projects, this will be a big challenge for the projects, right? So this scheme really supports connectivity. Then we have the pricing. Now the pricing has gone through, I would say now third stage revision, and the last revision was announced just about a month back. So we are currently at about close to 1600 rupees, 1600 rupees per MMBTU, slightly more than this. This is including the cost of biomethane as well as the compression cost, which translates to roughly about $18, close to 18 and a half dollar per MMBTU. So this is being offered by Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. In addition to that, the government of India also announced a blending obligation mandate, which was implemented from 2024 onwards, wherein the first year was voluntary. And currently, in the current financial year, we have a 1% mandate, which is currently going on. And the target is to reach up to 5% by 2028. And lastly, we have the support from the Department of Fertilizer to the tune of rupees 1,500 rupees per ton for the fermented organic manure, the digestate which comes out of the production process. So this gives you a snapshot of where do we stand in terms of the status quo of the policy framework from different ministries across the feedstock types as well as the value chain. Now, as a result of such a progressive policy framework, what we see is this is the kind of market development what we have in India at the moment. So currently, as we speak, we are, I think, about 110 projects as on June 2025, with a cumulative capacity of about 745 tons of biomethane production per day. Now, if we look at the numbers ending 2024 with 100 projects and a production volume of close to 43,000 tons per day, for that year, we achieved 0.6% blending of the overall natural gas consumption in India, which is within the transport and the domestic sector, wherein the total volume currently is about 7.4 million metric tons. Now, the way the projects are ramping up and new capacities are being built up, let's say with a best case kind of a scenario, there are two factors which we consider here. Currently, the plants are still underutilized in the sense they've just got commissioned. They are still early days, so the current capacity utilization factors are low. And when I say low, these could be anything between 15, 20, 25% only. And as they are ramping up in the current year and going up to about 50% of the capacity utilization, plus with the addition of new projects, roughly about 20 to 25 new projects are expected on a very conservative or realistic basis. With this kind of development in the current year, we could expect this 43,000 tons to go up to roughly about 150,000 ton plus, which means if the overall natural gas market, the normal development, the normal growth is concerned, the 0.6% blending could very easily surpass the 1% blending target what has been set by the government. It could be in the tune of anything around close to 1.5%. So that is looking quite positive. Now that's the status quo. It is still a lot of work which needs to be addressed, and this is where the next areas where policy work or some more bit action is required is what I've tried to summarize on my last slide here. So there is still a scope to further optimize or improve the support for the upstream activities in the agri-residue part, specifically on the biomass aggregation machinery, wherein the support could be linked directly to the plant capacities. And this will definitely be a big advantage to the project developers. Secondly, if the support is also extended towards storage of the biomass and not just restricted to the collection of the biomass, these two activities will definitely support the project developers who are working on the agricultural residue based biomethanation units. Similarly, on the MSW, the municipal solid waste part, the waste segregation is the toughest nut to crack over here. And this is where, if municipalities are able to assure the raw material supply one throughout the year and with the committed segregation levels, that is really a must for such plants to be a success. And in addition to that, if a processing fee could be standardized across municipalities, that would be a biggest advantage for the MSW plants. Whereas for the press mud based plants, some kind of pricing security, if that could be introduced, especially for the plants which are isolated. By isolated, I mean who do not have a backward integration or do not have their own captive sugar mills. For them, this will be a big advantage. Coming to the midstream part, currently the support from the center is restricted for plants which is up to 12 TPDs, 12 tons per day production. So we are in the process of, we have submitted recommendations as to we should allow this support to go for larger projects as well. So projects which is going up to 25, 30 or even more tons per day kind of capacity. And whereas dispersal of such assistance could be more milestone based, so that it adds the liquidity also for the project developers during the investment phase. Lastly, the long list on the downstream is primarily dominated by the fact that in India, as of now, the biomethane business case has two revenue streams. One, which is coming from the sale of the physical molecule, as well as from the sale of the digestate. Now, the third revenue stream, which is basically how to monetize the green attribute, is something which needs to be introduced. This is going to be the biggest, let's say, the biggest task for all the stakeholders, how to introduce a mechanism for issuance of renewable gas certificates or obligation certificates. So this will be one of the key topics, followed by a very effective implementation of the grid connectivity, because that is really going to be the must for all project developers, specifically with the provision of open access and not restricting the injection only to the to the distribution grid, which is a city gas distribution, but also allowing the injection into the transmission, that is the trunk pipeline grid. Now, till the time such provisions are introduced or stabilized in the Indian market, the government is already considering that how the MDA, the market development assistance, which is provided for the dispersal of the digestate, can be reviewed and increased till the time the green attribute monetization mechanism can be introduced in the market. So this is again really a crash course into the policy framework what we have at the moment and what is also expected to be coming up in the next coming months. I've tried to capture the primary topics over here. There are a lot more details which are being implemented at other ministries as well as at the state governments as well. But I think this is the best which can be done in this short time frame of 10 minutes. But if there would be any other questions related to it, happy to take it. So this is all what I would have for you at the moment. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kumar. We're glad you could join us. That was definitely very, very insightful. I would now like to invite Dr. Drosk. He's a leader of the IEA Bioenergy Task 37 and holds a PhD in environmental biotechnology with the focus of integrating biogas processes into bio-based industries. He heads the research area on biochemical technologies and bioenergy and sustainable technologies, GmbH. He's also a senior scientist at Boku University and has been an active in the biogas related research for about 18 years. That's almost 2 decades. Thank you, Mr. Drog. I hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me and can see my slides.
Yes, Mr. Drog, I can. I would just now request all the panelists to stick to the time limit so that we can wrap up
Perfect.
the webinar on time.
So I was asked to give a bit a summary of the lessons for policymakers, which we had from our last work program, 2022 to 2024, which is the technology collaboration program of IEA Bioenergy, especially the Task 37 energy on biogas. So what is the mission we have in IEA Bioenergy? We want to increase the knowledge and understanding of bioenergy systems in order to facilitate environmentally sound, socially acceptable, and cost-competitive bioenergy systems. Our key role is that we are independent body and we want to deliver clear and verified information. So mainly our tasks are provided with experts in the field. I don't want to go too much into detail here. It's a bit complex, but we're under the auspices of the International Energy Agency, and there's the Renewable Energy Working Party, which is under the Committee on Energy Research and Technology. And in this structure, we have here the IEA Bioenergy, currently 26 members, mainly European countries, but also China, India, Japan, and other international countries. Our task is in a context of other tasks which deal with different questions. So we're more on the specific question of biogas, and we work in the area of conversion and energy products and markets. But there are also other tasks like biomass supply, which work on the resource field, tasks which work on biorefining, or for example, on bio-based deployment. So there's different tasks which are under IEA Bioenergy working on different topics. Currently, we have about 17 participating countries in Task 37. Yeah, also strong focus from Europe, but also like Canada, India, and for example, Brazil and Australia from international perspective. I would like to start from the IEA headquarter report. So there was recently a report published by IEA, which is Outlook for Biogas and Biomethane, where also a group of us was involved as reviewer, but this was specifically from IEA headquarter, but not from our group. And we have here some key messages, like that there's a relatively small share of untapped potential for biogas, which is cost competitive, but you have to look at the co-benefits and the sustainability effects and able to unlock a higher potential. Another aspect is that the investment case is strongest when local economic deployment is a priority. So biogas has the advantage that the whole value chain can be in a regional level. Of course, there have been also some issues like from logistics or permitting procedures, which have been in many countries the reason that the increase in biogas production have been held back. And as often the case is in bioenergy, it's important to have a consistent and robust policy support to support the deployment of biogas. I also would like to show a bit the geographical distribution of the biogas potential. So this also from the IEA report. And you can see here, for example, that in the area of India or Southeast Asia, there's a big potential, as well as, for example, South America, US and Europe. So there are regions with a high potential of biogas. To go a bit more specific into IEA Bioenergy, so there has been a country report update published end of 2024. You can see here, for example, if I pick the country Denmark, so the red bars, the first one is for 2010, then it's a four-year step, 2014, 2018, 2022. And you can see if we look at the black dots, it has reached from 2010 about 3% of gas, biomethane as gas consumed, up to almost 40% now. So there are some countries that have really had a lot of increase. Also, if we look at Sweden, for example, in this 12 years from 8% to 20%. Yeah, this is just a bit to give you some data. And we have published in the last 3 years a policy paper, which is called The Role of Biogas and Biomethane in Pathway to Net Zero. And I would just like to highlight some main messages. It is stated that we require more than just renewable electricity. So also bioenergy and biomethane will play a role if we want to reach net zero in the future. Biomethane can replace natural gas. So like in my country, we have a strong gas infrastructure for fossil gas, and we can use this infrastructure also for biomethane. Biogas and biomethane are mature and multifunctional. So technologies we can be deployed now. And we can also contribute with biogas systems to energy security, because often the whole production chain is operated and set up locally. And biogas is also a technology which can use a large variety from feedstocks, from manure to municipal solid waste to industrial byproducts, sludges, and so on and so on. What is also something which we have to consider, that if we apply a biogas solution, we can reduce fugitive emissions from waste, as for example from municipal solid waste or manure. So the methane which would be emitted if manure is stored somewhere, we put in the biogas plant, we can reduce them. We have also byproducts as digestate and carbon dioxide, which is important to valorize. And if we have a region-specific analysis on the availability, costs, and impact of specific feedstock, we can do this to ensure effective and sustainable biogas projects. Biomethane is cheaper than green hydrogen and is also expected to remain so for some time in future. So definitely this is something worth to mention. And biogas and methane are sustainable and flexible systems. that can be used in circular economy, energy, and environmental systems. We just released one report, actually it's now for download 2 weeks ago, about identifying and assessing sustainability effects associated with biogas solutions. You can find the citation. And main messages is that especially for planners, developers, and policymakers, it's important to understand the broad system effects of biogas solutions, and that they're together with waste management, energy and industry and agriculture. So it's a complex system. It's not like a monofunctional system. Biogas can contribute to multiple sectors and sustainable goals, and it will require a great deal of cross-sectional collaboration so that biogas can be more intensively deployed. I will just highlight some key externalities which were our co-benefits which are mentioned in the report. So biogas will have impact on greenhouse gas emissions, on soil health, and also on, for example, nitrogen pollution in water. It can have effect on economy and society. So, for example, a topic of improving energy security, the cost of treating and processing wastes. We can use biogenic CO2. Often job creation in a rural area is something which is combined with biogas, and it can also contribute to resilience of agriculture. In agriculture, specifically to mention the reduction in use of synthetic fertilizer and also the impact of intermediate crops. With regard to energy, we can use existing gas infrastructure. We can produce renewable energy, which is stable and storable, and we can contribute to energy transition and regional circular economies and eliminate fossil energy when we use the biogas instead of fossil gas. If you go to detail, there are like 53 sustainability facts highlighted in the report. You can look down in the link for the details. So this is not something I want to go here in detail to show everything, but just maybe one interesting slide where you can see that for the biogas process, which is like about feedstock, biogas, digestate, fertilizer, CO2, and energy, there is a broad range of effects and services to society which biogas can deal with. And there are also already intentions to see how we can monetize these effects so that the actors can also benefit economically from this. So yeah, don't want to go here into details. I have already given a summary, but just that you have seen also this overview. So what can we do to promote? We can use scientific-based multi-criteria sustainability assessment. This is important, or we can recognize the cross-sectoral benefits of biogas solutions, which are in these different areas which are mentioned, from wastewater, agriculture, energy, and transport, and also in the industrial sectors. It is good to encourage a greater cross-sectoral collaboration. And also, like if we think about policymakers and ministries, to have a shared decision-making and support that contribute for a circular economy in general. And it should also have different sized solutions, and to have also valorize local communities. We should go more to integrated strategies that combine multiple renewable technologies and to deliver desired functions while addressing urgent sustainability challenges. So this is something where biogas can play a role. And what else is to say? So it is important to harmonize the life cycle value chain perspective across relevant policies. So this is one message of the report. And to enable biogas value chain actors to capture the full value of the contribution. As already mentioned, there's also some ideas how this sustainability effect can be monetized, and especially on the regulatory and administrative side, we should remove barriers and also restrictions on sustainable crop-based biogas and on long approval processes for technologies which are already mature. We should set clear targets on the production and use of biogas and biomethane and digestate and how to use the biogenic CO2, and to make sure that the supporting infrastructure and access to land is made possible. We should also balance top-down strategies with local adaptability to facilitate effective implementation of biogas. Yeah, so this was this on sustainability effect. Maybe just some other input from the industrial side. We have 2 reports with regard to biogas systems in industry. One key message is that the producing industry can address their Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions by biogas and biomethane. So there's a report we have been publishing on this. And the second aspect is that especially food and beverage industries have a vast range of bioproducts, sludges, wastes, byproducts, and they can be used on site for biogas utilization. So then the logistics is also not so much the issue for the feedstock because it's already at the facilities. I would also like to just show a short case story about a Danish online platform for trading biomass, and could be of interest. So this wants to make a direct trade between plants and manufacturers possible with no intermediates. So there's a direct payment from buyer to supplier. And there's a better ability to plan consumption and delivery deadlines. And the buyer can set the maximal price in this online platform. And the payment of fees is only done to the platform after the closing contract. So this is a case story we have of several topics, which are rather yeah, two pages, 3 pages, so little small information. So maybe this is something interesting to spread. So you can find the link below. Didn't have time to go too much into detail in other reports. We have one report on methane emission from biogas systems and landfills, and one on specific state of the biogas industry in some selected IEA Bioenergy Task 37 countries. Just a last slide from the internal program. So we have also a new program where we want to deal about specific topics. We will again work on the topic of sustainability effects because this is a very broad topic. In the next 3 years, we will also have a focus on digestate field application with standards, regulation, policies, best practices, and challenges. Topic is also about the monitoring of the microbial cultures in biogas plants. There are new methods which can be used. And a very important topic from the member states is also economics and greenhouse gas marginal abatement costs to compare these between the different countries. We have a topic on small-scale biogas plants, biogas system and synergies with e-fuel production. Again, case stories, this is more flexible topics. A country report summary we publish every 3 years. And there is some inter-task cooperation, IEA Bioenergy, on bioenergy carbon capture, utilization, and storage, and synergies of bioenergy. Last but not least, we have a newsletter. And on this side, you can see just mainly on task 37, IEABioenergy.com, you can go, and then you can find for different categories where you can register for newsletter or download the topics. So this was my presentation for today. I thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Mr. Vosk. So it was definitely very insightful. I would also like to highlight that, cross-sector collaboration, I agree, is extremely important. And sustainability assessments are another topic that GBA is also looking at. I would also like to bring to your attention about a few biofuels marketplace that have sprung up in India that we're aware of. Maybe you could also look at those. I'll avoid naming them, but there's a market coming up which could be looked at. I would now like to invite Mr. Paul Green, who is the principal of Green Tech LLC, a leading advisory firm in the renewable natural gas sector in the US. With over 30 years of experience in anaerobic digestion and biogas technologies, he's had key roles in across EPC, across multiple companies. In 2010, he was one of the founding members of the American Biogas Council and served as its first elected chairman. Mr. Green also holds a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering. So, Mr. Green, thank you for joining us. We're glad to have you. I will now leave the floor open to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. I appreciate the invitation to speak to you today about North America's RNG ecosystem. Let me just share my slides, okay? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. If you could, yes, that's great.
So as I was introduced, I was the first founding member of the American Biogas Council some years ago. So you can see my website here for my business, as well as biogas.tv is a fun social media site that I work on putting videos together for the biogas industry. I've had my own biogas advisory business for 3 years now. So we're going to talk a little bit about North American biogas markets, agricultural market, food manufacturing waste market, landfill gas market, the food waste market, municipal wastewater treatment, and post-consumer food wastes. Right now in the United States, the drivers are landfill ban directives to keep organic waste out of landfills. This is a state-to-state policy. So states like Connecticut, Massachusetts, California, and New York City have laws that mandate you cannot put food waste into landfills. In the transportation sector, there are new standards called low carbon fuel standards to incentivize production of biogas to put into the transportation market for trucks and buses and cars. Biogas has started to be looked at in the aviation industry for sustainable aviation fuel. New technology is arriving every month, and new tax credits are being established. In the United States, there was an investment tax credit over the past 2 years called the Inflation Reduction Act that just finished off, but now there's a whole large wave of projects that are being built because of this Section 48 investment tax credit. There's a new production tax credit called 48Z that is due to get renewed in this new budget that is coming out soon. In Canada, the Canadian Clean Fuel Regulation is good for Canadian activity as well as American activity to send biogas to Canada. Some policy in the United States ties to the RFS, that is the Renewable Fuel Standard. The currency of the RFS are RIN credits, RIN for Renewable Identification Numbers. In various states for policy, California has a low carbon fuel standard that has been driving the US biogas market very passionately for the past 5 years, and the Canadian CFR. As we speak, all eyes are on the upcoming 45Z production tax credit that is due to be put into law. The target is July 4th for the new budget, and we will know the rules for the 45Z production tax credits. Now that we're building projects that have a 30% of project capital costs investment tax credit, that is being fuel for the industry currently. Looking at new fuels such as aviation and maritime fuels are a very exciting opportunity in the United States. So back to the renewable fuel standard. There's several different types of these RIN credits. The most lucrative is called the D3 RIN for a cellulosic biofuel. And you can earn about $33 per MMBTU for a D3 RIN credit. And you get those from dairy manures, landfill gas, and municipal sludge. D5 RINs, called advanced biofuel RINs, are trading at about $14 per MMBTU. This big, beautiful bill, as our president likes to call it in the United States, is doing significant things in the biogas space. There's a hydrogen tax credit that is going to be expired. Section 45Z is where the action is, and we're trying to figure out if negative CI scores will be allowed to incentivize that. As, say, dairy projects in the US, the carbon intensity is super low. It's below zero. It's a negative carbon intensity, which rewards the value of that gas. The production tax credit is seemingly going to go out till 2031, so a 4-year extension. And again, this Section 48 investment tax credit, it expired the end of last year, but if you registered your project and you started it last year, you have a lot of time to get that built. Some trends in the US biogas market, the California LCFS, the prices have come down. So that has slowed the excitement of sending gas to California, but California set rules to decarbonize their transportation space. So other states, you could sell gas into California and get credit for that. D3 RIN prices have softened from $3.50 to $2.50 each. And now with some lack of certainty on the rules in the United States, the business has slowed for a while until this new budget bill gets approved to establish the rules. In California, the LCFS Bank of Credits is quite full now because the program is very popular. You'll see here that lately there's only over 35 million tons of credits in the bank. So when people generate credits and they take out deficits, the bank is full of credits right now. It was only 4 years ago that California LCFS prices were at $210 per ton of carbon avoided. Of late, we're down here in about the $50 per ton carbon avoided values. So prices have come down substantially, which makes project returns more challenging. The US tax code, you have to have started or safe harbored, as it's called, the project before January of this year to take your tax credit. So that would be 30% of the capital costs. You can write that off from your federal income taxes. Here's a picture of the United States biogas market. We have 576 RNG projects, 1,400 electricity projects, 609 on a farm, 1,100 at wastewater plants, 113 with food scraps, 583 at landfills. So we have about 2,500 operational biogas plants with the potential of about 17,000 more to come. This is a picture of the growth of the US biogas use in transportation, and it shows of late the growth rate has been very robust to the tune of about 1 billion to 1.6 billion gallons equivalent of transportation for the category of cellulosic fuels. Here's a snapshot of biogas systems in the US by feedstock source. Here you'll see a large portion are at wastewater treatment plants, a significant number at landfills. These are 5% for food waste digesters and 25% are agricultural waste digesters. the production of biogas from these projects. Landfills have most of the production. Agriculture has a large percentage of the production. Wastewater has a large piece of production, and food waste are the fourth largest. This shows total production capacity of biogas facilities over the past few years. So this is in cubic feet of gas per minute, and you can see the business has been growing very steadily over the past decade or 12 years. In 2024, about $3 billion of capital came online. So agriculture and landfills had the largest percentage. Food waste and wastewater had the smallest percentage, but agriculture, you'll see, has the highest growth area. As far as ongoing production capacity of US biogas projects, landfill is about 3/4, and other categories are smaller, with the current production being about 1.3 million standard cubic feet per minute. This is where biogas is produced in the United States. You'll see the red areas. You have the highest concentrations of biogas projects by flow rate, with the blue and the green being secondary, but the mid-Atlantic states and the upper Midwest, and then California, you'll see the bulk of the biogas projects. These are the US biogas projects as shown on farms, again with the red areas having the highest concentration of flow rate. In last year, this is where the new biogas production capacity was added in the United States. This separates out the RNG production by various feedstock types. So the black bar is landfill, the green bar is ag, the blue bar is wastewater, and this yellow bar is food wastes. And the units here are trillions of BTUs per year. This shows the growth capacity of the different markets. Wastewater has grown by 4% on average. Landfill has grown dramatically at 67%. And the other categories have shown strong growth capacity, with standalone food wastes being the slowest growth area, in that food waste projects have to compete with landfill projects. In the US, most of the farm-based projects are at dairy farms. You'll see 86% here, 10% in swine manure, 2% at poultry manure, 2% using crops. More and more, we'll see crop residues being considered for feedstock. Things like wheat straw and corn stover are increasingly being considered. This is the breakout by state of the different types of digesters. So in California is the leader. Wisconsin and New York and Pennsylvania follow. And this is specifically for farm-based digesters. This shows the growth in farm-based digesters. And lately you can see 523 have been running, with 93 new ones coming online in 2024. The growth rate has been around 12 to 17% for farm-based projects in the United States. This is largely driven by the California Incentive Plan. I'm going to fast forward here to some case studies to make up some time. In the US, here are some projects. This is in Chicago, in Illinois. This is a 110,000 ton per year food waste digester, taking food waste from food manufacturing, creating about 200,000 MMBTUs per year of RNG. In Ohio, in Cincinnati, This is a new food waste project that takes 190,000 tons of food waste and makes RNG for the pipeline. In Iowa, these are pictures of many dairy farm digesters, where this shows the skid-mounted gas upgrading equipment to make RNG quality from dairy manure. In North Carolina, in the city of Warsaw, these are some food waste digesters that make RNG, about 45,000 cubic meters of digesters. This is a very large project, taking waste from processing of protein of hogs and chickens. In Maryland, in the city of Jessup, this is a food waste digester that processes 100,000 tons of food waste per year and makes 190,000 MMBTU of RNG per year, taking food waste from local manufacturing. This is a project in Arizona where this takes manure from 10,000 milking cows and creates RNG in these 3 mixed digesters. In the West Coast, in San Bernardino, California, this is a digester that takes in 100,000 tons of food waste per year, makes electricity from the biogas, and they filter the digest state with fertilizer production equipment such as reverse osmosis water filters. So I wanted to thank you for your time and attention and your interest, and I welcome your inquiry. These are my contacts. With that, my presentation is done.
Thank you so much, Mr. Green. I would now like to welcome questions. I think we have a couple of them on the chat. Bernard, there is one for you. I think Ms. Karina is asking, is the Danish feedstock trading platform set up by the national government?
Yes, I have just looked it up at the internet. I don't find any indication that there is a government institution or so it's a company.
Got it. Mr. Kumar, I think someone has talked about the GAIL price at about being
Right.
about 1,500 rupees per MMBTU. Do you have any comments on that? I think it's
So that figure is correct. It is 1478 per MMBTU. Plus, there is 8 rupees for the compression charge. So if you convert that into MMBTU, you will get a figure of roughly around 1,630 per MMBTU.
got it. There's one more question, and I'll leave it to you guys to who wants to answer it. Are all biodigesters on dry digestion or wet digestion?
In the United States, I would say that 95% of the digesters are wet digesters or low solids digesters, and about 5% of the projects are using high solids dry digesters.
That would be applicable pretty much across.
Clear.
I would say in Austria it's similar to US. So
Yeah.
Got it.
in Europe, sorry.
Clear. Bernard, there's one more question for you. Is Task 37 considering integrating flexible energy systems? Because biomethane can play an important role in meeting peak load demand of electricity as well as cooling load of building.
There is specific task which deals with these questions, how to have or take advantage of the flexibility of bioenergy. So you can find it on the homepage iabioenergy.com. I'm personally not so much involved, so I cannot give a lot of details on this, but there are experts working on this.
Sure. I think the last question that we would like to take is they've asked for numbers on comparison of biogas and hydrogen cost. Would any of you happen to have it handy? We could perhaps float it across. Okay. To Mr. Kumar, there's another question on potential of bioenergy production in India through biomethanation process.
Well, that's basically a commercial decision because the cost of liquefaction and then transportation is something which will have to be looked into. So far, there is no project other than one pilot project which has been identified, which happens to be ours, but still it is yet to get commissioned. So the capex and opex of the liquefaction part is something which that is where the decision is going to be.
Got it. Dr. Kare is asking if there's any report available on techno-commercial, techno-economic viability for meeting peak electricity load and thermal load. Okay. There's one more question by Ujjwal. Is GREET sufficient for calculating the CO2 emissions? Or are there any other tools being considered for DIN or California regulations? I believe that is to Mr. Green.
Yeah, GREET is a very powerful tool. So I'll just say yes as a short answer to that question. That's not a perfect answer. It's a very deep question.
Clear. So I think this is very helpful. I just had one more question for the panelist. Is do you think the Paris Agreement alignment, right? Do you think that could provide a boost to biomethane on a global level? Do you think, or the Corsia mandate that when it does kick in, do you think it could help the industry in general? Yeah, perhaps Mr. Kumar, you could start and then we could follow it up.
I mean, from an Indian context, definitely yes, because if we are able to have a provision for these export of green attributes, especially in countries where there is a mechanism to monetize it in a much more attractive manner as compared to the domestic market, this will definitely give a big boost to the sector in India and attract a lot of investments.
Got it. Mr. Green, you had something to say?
I would say that a lot of the drivers in the United States are global companies coming to the United States to do their manufacturing, where they need to show carbon emissions of their supply chain and their direct carbon emissions, and biomethane, as spelled out in the Paris Agreement, is a great way for global companies to reduce their carbon footprint.
Got it. There was one more, Mr. Bernard, in case you have any thoughts on that.
Just a general comment, as also highlighted on my slides. So one of the effects of treating residues or waste is that we can somehow make possible that emissions don't emit. So if we put like the manure in a biogas plant and we capture the methane, so this methane will not emit. So definitely I would consider waste treatment, organic manure treatment, and so if there is a push for reducing emissions, there will also be a push for biogas.
Got it. Mr. Rudy, there's one more question for you on how do food waste plants operate? What is the incentive for HoReCa, which is hotels, restaurants, and caterers, to provide waste to biogas plants?
I don't know what HoReCa is. What is that?
HoReCa is a short form for hotels, restaurants, and caterers, essentially mass food producers.
I see. Okay.
For them to provide their waste to biogas plants.
So in the United States, it's those few states that have mandates where you cannot send waste to landfills, such as Connecticut and New York and California, that keeps the material from hotels and restaurants going to digesters instead of to landfills. So I would argue that we need more of these laws in more states in the United States to keep organic waste out of landfill and send them to digesters.
Got it. Mr. Kumar, there's one more question for you. This Napier grass-based CBG project, is it a viable option in Indian context?
So actually two parts to it. First, I mean, we have so much waste around us, whether it is municipal waste or agriculture waste. So why look into another category? That is one. The second is, if one is still looking at Napier, because it is being looked in the Indian context at the moment, there's a lot of discussion around Napier grass. I think it's again, how does it fit into the current investment case? Because then you are adding to the feedstock cost, not only there's a cost of plantation, the whole cropping cost, and then you have the added cost of logistics and collection and storage. Despite of the fact that it might give you 2 or 3 cuts in a year, I think we do not have really an existing case wherein the commercials could be proven that yes, it fits into the business case. So I do not have a straight answer to that.
Got it. We'll be starting. Mr. Cardamon, do I have you? Just want to check in. Okay. Got it. I'll come back to the questions now. For refinery wastewater, is there any reference for biogas plant? And if any, what is the yield that was observed?
In many US refineries, they have digesters for oily waste. So oily, fatty wastes give you a lot of biogas. They give you a very strong gas yield. So yes, refinery waste is a good source for making biogas.
There's one more question. According to experts, which feedstock is most promising for generating biogas?
Well, you mean it's a general question, so maybe I will give a very general answer. So biogas technology is very broad, so you can apply it in wastewater treatment, you can apply it in sludge treatment from wastewater, you can try it on municipal solid waste, you can apply it on different byproducts from agriculture. So generally, it's a very broad. We have been in our reports also focusing on different countries, and normally there is a focus on policies and also like on the agricultural situation. So, for example, countries like France focus more on manure treatment. Norway and Sweden on fish residues. So, there is also, depending, at least for Europe, I can speak on the countries and on the policies in place there.
I would add to that, in the US, the opportunities for food wastes are extremely high. There's 1.3 million tons of food waste sent to landfill per year, and I would argue sending that to a digester is superior to going to landfill, which is still legal in the US, but I would say separating food waste is the strongest opportunity.
Clear. Mr. Kumar, any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, here, both MSW and Agri, they would have the largest volumes. So both are pretty attractive. As well as, I mean, we have abundance of sugar mills. So all three feedstock types currently would be highly attractive.
Got it. I think we have Mr. Alessandro with us. Mr. Alessandro, I'm trying to promote you to a panelist. And we will begin with his remarks shortly. I would like to thank all of
Yes,
you
I'm
for
here.
taking questions so candidly. I'll just give a quick introduction about him. He holds a degree in business administration and has half a decade of experience in the financial markets, M&A, and public equities. In 2008, he founded Geoenergetica, and then since then has been dedicated to biogas. He was one of the founders of the Brazilian Biogas Association, where he's also currently a board member. I will leave the floor to you, Mr. Alessandro. Thank you so much.
Can you please share my presentation? I have a problem right now here. Can you please do this for me? Help me out.
Sure, let me do that. Just give me one moment. Just give us 1 minute.
Is that thing working? I just got an email that you were not able to put me on the participant list.
Yeah, just pulling it up. Just 1 second. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Yes, great.
Thank you very much, guys, for the time. It's a pleasure being here. So we at Biogás are now 160 companies across the spectrum. So from developers to suppliers to customers, international and local companies. So we've been growing quite a lot in the last years. Please, if you can advance. I think Brazil already has a very renewable energy matrix, and especially a power matrix. I think we have a big opportunity, especially in the fuel segment here. So electricity in Brazil, I think, shouldn't be a problem with green matrix, especially with the hydro and solar and wind we have been growing. So we are focusing really as fuel and for the fuel matrix here in Brazil. Please. So right now we are 1,600 plants of biogas, but growing a lot between 2015 and 24, but especially low technology projects. I think that most of our projects right now do not have a big, just a little bit of cogeneration and mostly as wastewater treatment systems. So covered lagoon, basically. Right now we have 13.5 biomethane plants, 12 already authorized by ANP, 20 for self-consumption, representing 800,000 per day. But still, this is almost nothing part of the potential. There's another 1.5 million in authorization process. So the authorization process will more than double per year. And we have a steady growth of new projects and mapped for the next 3 to 4 years. Yes. So we have a big potential, especially in the sugarcane industry. Besides mud, that was said before, also bagasse and leaves, and of course urban solid waste, sewage, and animal protein is also important. So we see as a vision 35 million cubic meters per day in the next 5 to 6 years could be something achievable. The long-term potential, theoretical potential for Brazil is 120 million cubic meters per day. So a huge potential. Half of this is sugarcane. So this has to be seen how it's going to be developed. So all our this potential is only based on waste. So we don't have energy crops considered here, especially sugarcane industry, agriculture, and animal. So this is more or less what we're planning to do. And we have a lot of projects going on now, especially for transport, trucking, based on biomethane. There's a big landfill project called Gas Verde in Rio that is mainly for biomethane used in fleets and also heavy light vehicles. Please. Then there are other uses like CNG transport to industry substituting LPG. And for industries that are interested to producing springs to the left, for instance, is renewable springs. Springs for trucks produced with green steel. So the biomethane is used to produce the springs. Also in the chemical and the glass segment are very interesting opportunities going on. And a lot of circular economy concepts really with, to the left, is milk and dairy production using the biomethane as diesel substitution for the transport in the dairy industry. The second project is the sugarcane industry with a lot of opportunities. 5% of Brazilian diesel consumption is diesel transporting cane. And also Yara, the fertilizer company, is producing green ammonia with biomethane from a sugarcane industry. So I think there's a lot of spectrums. We have the base case projects. Please, if you can advance. Please. And a lot of regulatory framework in place, especially a lot of different policies being set up, especially the Fuels of the Future law. If you can go for the next slide, please, we can talk a little bit more on that. Fuels of the Future was passed last year. So it's for decarbonizing the natural gas industry. One more slide, please. So the idea is to substitute decarbonized natural gas industry using biomethane, recognition of life cycle analysis as the best methodology for measuring the reduction of GHGs, with a mandate for 1% of biomethane kicking in next year, up to 10% in 2035. We also want to work on substituted diesels in heavy vehicles, agricultural machinery, and engine conversion. And a lot of also infrastructure to connect biomethane plants to natural gas work, and also isolated systems. So the Fuels of the Future law kicked in, is under regulation right now, the regulatory framework that will kick in, so January 26. So the way it's going to work, our CNPs, our energy agency council, National Energy Council, with all the ministries, they will do the target for the next 1 to 3 years of decarbonization of biomethane international gas grid. With that, ANP, that's our National Petroleum Agency, will define the volume of biomethane to be acquired. And the producers will be able to buy biomethane or Segobi. Segobi is a credit, a certificate of origin credit that will be transacted in the stock exchange. And the Segobi will be able to be freely traded up to their withdrawal by the obligated party. The interesting thing here is that the obligated party is the natural gas producer or importer, so especially the oil makers. So we will have the Segobi regulation along the next 6 months. We're a little bit late, but we hope to be ready in January. Please. So then we have the Renova Bio, that is another program that's already operating, where we based also the framework that's working for 4 years now, where the mandatory is for the fuel transportation, where for biofuels, where you have an individual grade for every producer on his life cycle analysis. And with this grade, you emit something called CBIOS that can also be traded in the stock exchange. And the obligatory party here is the fuel distributor. So, and the fuel distributor has an average efficiency notes that he needs to reduce the emissions of his cars. And a lot of state regulatories going on. I think a lot of opportunities here on the state programs. Please go on. And also tax incentives where we can have VATs exemption. That's very important in Brazil, or CapEx. We are on the tax reform that will make this all easier. And we have incentivized financing mechanism with bonds that do not pay taxes. Yes, this was it.
Thank you, Mr. Gardman, and that was very helpful. In case anyone has any questions, I think we have a few minutes to take that. Otherwise, we could proceed with the next panelist, Mr. Hamers.
Yes, well, thank you. Do you want to do questions?
Yes.
Shall I share my own presentation, or do you want to do the questions first?
No, just wanted to take a moment to actually introduce you. Just give me a second, if that's okay. Hi. So Mr. Hamers is the Secretary General of the European Renewable Gas Registry. Before starting here, he worked at several other European industry associations representing sectors such as the weighing industry and agricultural machinery industry. Mr. Hamers, I would also invite you to speak a few words about yourself when you begin the presentation, and the floor is now yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the invite to be able to speak. So yes, I'm working for ERGAR, European Renewable Gas Registry. In one slide, what do? We have kind of two main activities. On the one hand, we facilitate the cross-border trade of renewable gas certificates. They're all registered in national registries, and if you want to send it from one country to another, that can be done by us. And secondly, we're a forum for the collaboration of renewable gas registry and market participants in Europe. We're kind of European industry association for all stakeholders involved in biomethane or renewable gas trading in Europe. So that's in a nutshell what we do with ERGAR. And I will speak today about biomethane certification. That's our core expertise. And then the main question is, why do we need certification? And then it's all about the difference between non-renewable methane from the grids and biomethane from the grids, because the molecule is the same, especially if it's mixed. But then the main difference is the certificates you have with it to claim that you use biomethane. And then in Europe, we are a bit in the unfortunate situation that we have several certificates. Doesn't make it easier. I will briefly present them. So first we have the guarantee of origin. I think it's a term that was used in the previous presentations as well. It's a book and claim certificate that's issued by a national registry. And then it's in this national database. And it's said when you want to send from one registry to another, that's done by us. And the main purpose is consumer disclosure. So that means just to show to the final user that you can claim to use renewable gas or biomethane in this case. And the most important one indeed is book and claim. So the certificate is traded separately from the physical gas itself. A second certificate based on EU legislation is the so-called proof of sustainability, or POS. And the main purpose here is to show that biomethane is compliant with the sustainability requirements under the Renewable Energy Directive. So biomethane can have both a GO and a proof of sustainability. And proof of sustainability can only be given to biomethane that is sustainable, where the guarantee of origin is given to all biomethane or practically all biomethane. The purpose is a bit different because there are a lot of targets at EU level, but also at national level. And for example, in the transport sector, and if you want to use biomethane to reach these targets, you need to have a proof of sustainability. The issuance is a bit different. It can be done by the producer themselves if they're certified according to a recognized voluntary scheme, where I think ICC is the most known one internationally. And then an important difference is it needs to be mass balanced. So there should be a physical link between the biomethane that's sold, the gas that's sold, and the certificate. And then thirdly, that's more for historical reasons or for national legislation reasons. There are also other certificates. We use the umbrella term certificate of origin, and they have a lot of similarities with the guarantee of origin, but they can also be used for national targets, for example. The most known one is the Dana Biogas Registry from Germany. This is in a nutshell the certificates. How does it work? So I think this might look more familiar for many of you. So the producer makes a product declaration, or the gas grid operators provide injection data, and then a guarantee of origin is issued by the national GO registry or CO registry, and then it's traded from one account to another. Just like money is transferred from bank account to a bank account, the certificate is traded from one account to another. And then at a certain moment, either it expires after 18 months or it's cancelled. And when it's cancelled, this kind of means somebody is claiming it. So somebody's saying, okay, I will use this guarantee of origin to say that I used this biomethane. And then for the voluntary market, you can claim that you used the biomethane or any other renewable gas. Going back to what Ergar is doing. So we have this cross-border hub where 7 system participants are connected at the moment. So the Netherlands, UK, Germany, Denmark, Switzerland, Austria, and Slovakia. And if you want to trade between these countries, they can have bilateral agreements, but it's much more simple if there's a centralized hub, and Ergar provides this centralized hub. One note, as you can see, there's also AIB, the Association of Issuing Bodies. They also provide a centralized hub. So that creates some problems on the market because it's not easy to trade, for example, from the Netherlands to Italy, this situation. Yeah, here's the bit explained. So all the different countries, if they transfer from country A to country C, it goes via Ergar or AIB. This is a bit the transfers we're doing in gigawatt hours. So you see there's a clear increase in the number of transfers. So we did over 1 terawatt hour in the first quarter of the year. Those transferred via Ergar. And then most of it is going to Germany. What are the challenges with cross-border geo trading? First of all, there's no geo registry in each country, especially in Eastern Europe. Not all countries have one. And not all geo registries are connected to the same hub. As mentioned, if you want to send something from Italy to the Netherlands, that doesn't work because the Netherlands isn't up to now still connected to the Ergar hub and Italy to the AIB hub. And one of the other challenges is that you need to count in all the different geo registries to cancel it and to trade, and they're all different administrative procedures and requirements. So that's a bit an update on this one certificate, the geo, what are the main challenges. And then we can also go to the other one, the proof of sustainability. And the document you see here on the right, that's kind of a proof of sustainability. You fill in the document, you fill in the name, the address, the type of product, the raw material. And an important part as well is the third, the lowest part, the GHG emissions. So you calculate the emissions based on a formula in the Renewable Energy Directive, what you need to calculate. For example, the transport of the feedstock to the biomethane plants needs to be calculated, but also the processing emissions. And then you can have a discount for manure, or if you liquefy and sell the biogenic CO2. And in the end, you come with one CI score, carbon intensity score. As you can see, it's quite a simple document, and up to now, you can just send this document from a producer to a trader, and from a trader to an end user. And it's relatively simple, even though it's important to know that you can only trade the proof of sustainability if you're certified. So as mentioned, as a producer, you need to be certified to issue these certificates, and as a trader, you need to be certified to be able to trade these certificates. That's the situation how it is now, but this will all change drastically, I expect, with the new union database. This is an EU-wide database developed by the European Commission to replace the current system of tracking and tracing the ownership of the POS. In short, you don't send these certificates anymore via PDF, but as an EU database where this information is stored, and it's a bit similar to the geo registry. It's sent from one account to another. Also based on the Renewable Energy Directive. Important to know, it's not a trading platform. It's really only tracking and tracing it. And I always put this on, there's a major disclaimer. Things are changing. It's not all completely sure yet how it looks like. But at least we present our understanding of the situation. To give you an idea what will be covered by the union database, it's important to say that the proof of sustainability, or biomethane with the proof of sustainability, but also biomethane with a geo and a proof of sustainability. So that's the biggest part of the market will be covered by the union database. And what will be the impact on the market? First of all, you get a more harmonized market for the geo plus POS or the POS only. As we mentioned before, if you want to send a geo between the different hubs or from countries where there's no geo registry, that isn't possible at the moment. But how we understand it, this will be possible if you use the union database. So you get a more harmonized market for the largest, the vast majority of biomethane. Second impact will also be more clarity and more certainty. So before, if you would receive the physical gas with the PDF document by email, you just need to trust the other party that they don't send this PDF document to 10 different and other traders. And generally that doesn't happen. But this provides more certainty if you really get it in an EU-wide database. And the third impact is that there might be some problems with imports from third countries. So this is an EU database, but if you want to import it, you need to fulfill the EU requirements. And at the moment, there are two ways. On one hand, there's a completely segregated supply chain. So you cannot use the natural gas pipelines where it's mixed and you just do a paper mass balancing. No, it needs to be a completely segregated supply chain, which is very uncommon. And the second option would be a recognized mass balance system in a specific country. So if you want to trade Ukraine, there will be a recognized mass balance system. So if you want to send it from Ukraine to the EU, that's possible, but they want to make sure that the biomethane is not counted in the other country as well. So there's no double counting. But Ukraine is also the only example. I know there's some discussions with the UK ongoing and also with the US, but as it seems to be now, it's not sure yet how this will work in practice when the union database will be implemented. And then I also come to one of the big question marks of the union database. When will it become mandatory? We don't know yet. We understand there's another meeting next week with the EU member states and the European Commission, and hopefully they find an agreement. My best guess is early next year. So then the union database will be mandatory first only for the feedstocks and then slowly for all biomethane that's produced. So this is a bit on the two types of certificates we have in the market. Then we also have the national certificates. I don't go into detail to them because then it will take a lot of time. But I would like to present a bit more, how the market works with these certificates. And for that, it's important to realize that there are different use cases for biomethane. The key one is the compliance markets. As mentioned as well, there are a lot of national quotas. For example, mostly the transport market is the most known one, but we also get blending obligations in certain countries. So if you need to meet the national requirements, you need to use certain certificates. Second one is the EU emission trading scheme, the ETS scheme. So that's for the big producers, polluters of greenhouse gas emissions. They get certain certificates, how much they can emit, and you can use biomethane to produce the certificates you need to buy. And the third use case is the voluntary markets. Companies that want to claim they decarbonize, they can buy also certificates. So what kind of certificates do you need? As mentioned, compliance markets, you need proof of sustainability, as mentioned in the transport sector, blending obligations, so that a certain percentage of methane, the gas used, needs to be biomethane, or in Germany, there are also many quotas. Most commonly used the EEG to claim renewable energy production increased electricity production. Second one is the ETS. As mentioned, biomethane with a proof of sustainability can be considered zero rated. So only sustainable biomethane can that be used. And then the combination of the proof of sustainability and GO can be used in practice. What complicates the situation is there are a lot of differences in implementation in the countries, where to send the certificates, how to use it. Can you use subsidized biomethane for the ETS or for the transport quotas? That makes it very unclear, and the Union database is expected to make this simpler when it's completely implemented. Then briefly on the biomethane voluntary markets, that's a bit uncertain. Companies that want to use the biomethane for the voluntary markets, they often use the GHG protocol, the greenhouse gas protocol. For ones less familiar with it, that's an organization developed by the WRI that develops guidance on how to calculate your greenhouse gas emissions as a company. And there's a reference in EU legislation, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, but also in program setting within the Science Based Target Institute. They all refer to the greenhouse gas protocol. The only problem is that they don't provide any guidance. They provided an interim statement 2 years ago saying we don't provide any guidance on how to calculate biomethane market-based instruments like the certificates. Which is unfortunate because a lot of companies, they're waiting with investing in biomethane until there's more clarity on it. The relatively good thing is that these guidance documents are currently being revised. So hopefully we can get make use of the GO or the proof of sustainability to reduce scope 1 or scope 3 emissions. But we need to wait. So the first document is expected by the end of 2025, and the final standard should be ready by 2028. And hopefully then we have more clarity how the biomethane can be used, and also more companies more corporates will invest in biomethane to decarbonize, and it will have a big impact on the markets. Short update on the support mechanisms. They really depend per country, often also a bit on the level of development, where you can see that in the beginning, there's a lot of investment support, so support to really build the biomethane plants. Then it often moves more to production support, so contracts for differences, for example, where you get a certain price for your biomethane. And then kind of the final phase, roughly speaking, is quotas. So in Germany, you have a lot of quotas, but for example, also in the Netherlands, you have the blending obligation. And that's, the support mechanisms that are possible, and that also impacts the price. So in each market, there are small differences in the approach. So everything combined makes the biomethane price in Europe. But then looking at the price, what makes the difference between biomethane? Because it's not biomethane has one price. It's a very differentiated market and a fragmented market in contrast to, for example, natural gas. The first really important one is the carbon intensity score. As I mentioned before, the GHG emissions, because for certain quotas, like the German transport quota, you need to have a minimum threshold. or it needs to be part of the total calculations. So you need to reduce emissions with such an amount. So there's an incentive to buy biomethane with low GHG emissions. And here you can clearly see that manure and other waste has lower CI scores than crops, for example. Especially for manure, they get a discount. There's a lot of demand in Europe for that. Another important one is subsidized, unsubsidized biomethane. It gets a bit more complicated and technical, but in short, it means that in certain countries, to use the biomethane for quotas, you cannot use biomethane that's subsidized. They say, oh, we only want unsubsidized biomethane. So of course, it has an impact on the price as well. Another very more obvious one is that if you have a proof of sustainability on top of the guarantee of origin, you get a higher price as well. So biomethane that's considered sustainable is expected to get the higher price. And another one is, it's related to the carbon intensity score, but the feedstock, where waste is often a higher price due to limitation of crop use to qualify for subsidies or quotas in certain countries. And so that's but the update on the biomethane markets. So what are the use cases? Compliance, ETS, voluntary markets, and then what has an impact on the price of biomethane in Europe? And the final ones is what are the key developments expected with respect to biomethane market and certification specifically. We expect a continued trend of stable and significant growth. There are EU targets of 35 BCM production by 2030. I highly doubt that these targets will be reached, but at least there's a clear, considering the current production, top of my head is 6 BCM of biomethane. So a lot of growth in 5 years. We won't reach that, but over the last years, there's a steady growth. We expect a movement towards a more single European market with the EU Union database that will create more harmonization and trust, and more certificate registries will be connected. Another one is that we hope that the GHG protocol will provide more clarity on the role of biomethane, and biomethane can be used to reduce your scope 1 emissions. And then we expect a lot more voluntary demands from corporates. And we expect a continued support system, but with more attention to quotas and blending obligations in different countries to more move along that chain. And I think then I'm running out of time. I just want to mention this website, www.renewablegascertificates.org. That's a website where we try to educate and inform the general public about these certificates in Europe. So feel free to have a look if you want to get some more information on this.
Thank you, Mr. Hamers. I think we have a couple of questions for you, I think. If you could take them, I think we have 3 minutes, so I will allow you to take that time. There is a question from Mr. Peter saying that for the European cross-border trading, does it accept gas coming in from outside of Europe? If so, how? I think you mentioned this during your presentation.
It does for now, but will change with the Union database. So the Union database, as mentioned, will come into force next year. I expect at least, and then it's a bit more uncertain. Hopefully they find a solution, but nothing is certain yet.
Got it. Ms. Uma Shankar is asking, is there a benchmark on the amount of carbon credits produced per ton of biogas, categorized by type of feedstock? So let's say for pressed mud or rice straw or other agricultural waste, is there a standard value or is it a calculated value?
With carbon credits is meant the ETS credits, I guess. That's it's a bit complicated because, as mentioned, there's a different implementation in each country. I would say roughly 1 ETS credit is very roughly, I would say 4 or 5 megawatt hour of biomethane. And that's, as far as I remember, it's not depending on the feedstock. And then there's any intent to identify the carbon intensity. Attempt to identify the carbon intensity
of biogas production and choice of technology and equipment.
Not that I'm aware.
Yes. I think Mr. Kumar, sorry, Tim, there's one more question for you on UCO coming from Malaysia. Does it also follow the same methodology?
Yeah, so UCO, the liquid biofuels also need to follow the rules of the Union database. But there often it's a bit more segregated or mass balanced supply chain and less use of the pipeline. So that should be easier, but there should be some, it should be included in the Union database as well.
Got it. Mr. Kumar, I think you had two questions which you kindly
Right.
answered.
Right.
In case
Ms. Hamas, thanks a lot. Your presentation has been extremely insightful. From your experience, what could be the first steps to initiate this mechanism of issuance of the renewable gas certificates? I'm talking from an Indian perspective, since there is nothing equivalent existing at the moment. The first steps.
First, I would say have a discussion on what do you want? Do you want to work with a system based on registries, or you want to have a system based on what is currently the case for the proof of sustainability, where you have audits? Because the registries might be more reliable to track, but it requires some independent verification of the quantities by the grid operators.
Okay.
But happy to reach out to me bilaterally if you want to have a
I
more
would
in-depth
do that. Right. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Amos. That was very, very helpful, and thank you for taking the questions as well right away. I will now invite our next set of speakers, Dr. Archusman Bose and Dr. Richard O'Shea. A quick introduction about them. Dr. Richard O'Shea is a lecturer in sustainability and enterprise at School of Engineering at UCC, which is the University College of Cork. He holds a PhD in energy engineering and BE in energy engineering as well. He focuses on multiple criteria decision analysis and decarbonization of industry techno-economic analysis. Dr. Archusman Bose is an Eli Lilly lecturer in process and chemical engineering at UCC. He holds a PhD and an MSc, as well as a bachelor's in engineering. He was a program director for pharmaceutical and biopharmaceutical engineering at UCC. He focuses on circular bioeconomy and industrial symbiosis, as well as product design, process design, feasibility analysis with emphasis on biorefining. I will now hand over the floor to you, Dr. O'Shea and Dr. Bose. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you see our screen?
Yes, it's visible.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone online. It's a pleasure to be here. I will give a short introduction to our presentation on innovations in biomethane, insights from some recent research projects, which will be co-delivered by myself and my good colleague, Dr. Archusman Bose. So a quick overview about myself. As was introduced, I'm a lecturer in sustainability and enterprise. I did my PhD in pathways to a biomethane industry in Ireland. I did energy engineering in my undergraduate. My area of expertise is primarily around multi-criteria decision analysis for comparing the sustainability of different projects and also looking at how industry can decarbonize. I'm a member of a number of funded research projects from the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, Gas Networks Ireland, Teagasc, who are the Irish Agricultural Research Institute, and the Environmental Protection Agency in Ireland. I'm also part of the Circular Economy, Energy and Environmental Systems Research Group, led by my colleagues, Professor Jerry Murphy, who's the director of the Research Ireland Marai Centre for Energy, Climate and Marine and Professor of Civil Engineering, along with Dr. Archusman Bose, Dr. David Wall, who's a senior lecturer in transport engineering, and myself. Our funders, we've a range of them from kind of public, governmental or private funding, and our research team grows and it waxes and wanes depending on funding cycles. Currently, we're around the 20-member mark. Our areas of expertise in terms of refineries, we've got a lot of interest in experimental analysis around microalgae, biochar, biofertilizers, carboxylic acids, and carbon dioxide. In terms of waste valorization, we primarily focus on biofuels and biorefineries. Systems modeling, we do an element of it in terms of hydrogen production, methanol synthesis, ammonia, and methane. And then in terms of linking all of those together in sustainable technologies, we've a keen interest in e-fuels and e-refineries. And expanding that out slightly further, this graphic shows kind of the different areas in which our research is focusing on. We have traditionally done a lot of work in anaerobic digestion in the bottom left-hand corner, but in recent years we've expanded beyond that and we're looking at electrolysis, biological methanation, and novel methods for upgrading of biogas to biomethane that Dr. Bowes will speak about, as well as looking at valorizing digestate through the production of biochar and using those in downstream processes. In terms of some key highlights and novel developments from recent research projects, one of the projects that we completed was called the EcoAD project, funded by the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland and Gas Networks Ireland. It had 5 work packages that aimed to enhance the on-farm digestion efficiency through novel pretreatment of biomass used in Ireland, integrating electromethanogenesis with anaerobic digestion to improve overall performance, optimizing the logistics of on-farm anaerobic digestion, and a techno-economic analysis. One of the key findings from this work was comparing 2-stage anaerobic digestion with and without the addition of biochar. And what we found was that the addition of biochar increased hydrogen production in the first stage by anywhere between 62 and 139% in 2-stage digestion. And when we looked at methane yield, adding biochar at approximately 10 grams per litre increased biomethane yield by 3% in the single-stage system at the bottom, or by 7% in the 2-stage system at the top when it was operating at an organic loading rate of 4 kilograms VS per metre cube per day. Moving on from that, we also investigated the impact of adding electrodes into the digesters. So we had 5 different groups. The first group had a digester with just 2 electrodes. The second group had a digester with electrodes and 10 grams of biochar. The third group had a digester with electrodes and modified surfaces. And the fourth group had a batch digester with electrodes and 10 grams of biochar, and then a control in group 5. What we found was that in these batch trials, biochar increased biomethane yield by 7.9%. The MECAD system, which is the system incorporating the electrodes, increased methane yield by 96% and improved the methane content by 32% compared to the baseline scenario. And the proposed underlying cause was increased VFA degradation at the anode and in situ carbon conversion from CO2 to methane on the cathode, so that kind of in situ Sabatier process. And what we found was that if you were to put in 1 kilowatt hour of electricity, you could increase the methane output of the system by approximately 6.5 times. So it was acting as an enhanced way of degrading the feedstocks. We also looked at the logistics of implementing on-farm anaerobic digestion in Ireland. Ireland is a very disparate agricultural industry, a lot of small farms that are disaggregated throughout the countryside. And we also looked at the impact of our farming system on the availability of feedstock for digesters. In Ireland, our pasture-based system means that livestock are out during the summertime. They're only indoors for a portion of the year, making that manure resource difficult to obtain during summer months. And we also looked at the impact of different demand profiles. Again, because of our agricultural system in Ireland, milk processing is a large demand, and that peak demand would be in the summertime. Traditionally, gas network demand would be highest in the wintertime for heating loads. Moving on from that, we also looked at novel 2-phase anaerobic digestion systems, where we tried to control biogas output in order to meet peak electricity demand. This is a 2-stage, 2-phase system designed and built by Rajesh Shinde, which uses a series of leach bed reactors and upflow anaerobic sludge blankets. And what we found was that by pulse feeding the EGSBs or UASBs, with a peak feeding 2 hours before the expected electricity peak in the evening, you could control biogas output to match periods when electricity demand would be highest, and that would allow industries to reduce their electricity consumption from the grid by generating electricity at times of peak demand. This work was also assessed looking at specifically whiskey distilleries by Dr. Anga Hukula, who's now in the University of Maryland in the US. His research looked at a similar 2-phase system but this was utilizing whiskey byproducts, solid and liquid whiskey byproducts. And what he found was that the two-phase system obtained about 60% of the theoretical biogas production. The methane was about 75% by volume. And when he looked at the VFA profile of the leachate that was produced from the LBR system, it was approximately 55% butyric acid and 20% acetic acid. He then looked at a number of these different systems, a single-stage digester using whiskey byproducts, a two-stage digester, and this novel kind of leach bed upflow anaerobic sludge blanket reactor. All three systems obtained similar methane yields, but what he also found was that the biogas produced by these systems was able to replace about 44% of the natural gas demand of the distillery, and that would increase the revenue generated per original litre of alcohol by approximately 0.14 euro. Some of my own research looked at how to implement anaerobic digesters at distilleries in order to reduce their Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 greenhouse gas emissions. We assessed the byproducts from a large distillery in Ireland in a number of different scenarios, and then modelled what would happen across 9,261 different scenarios in terms of maximising benefit, minimising drawback, treating your drawbacks and benefits equally, and then using some subjective weights of importance from decision makers. So we considered the Scope 1 emission saving, Scope 3 emission saving from using digestate, other emissions from potentially imported animal feed if the distillery no longer produces animal feed, and a reduction in protein production from the distillery in terms of lost animal feed, and as well as that, the electricity savings at the distillery if they no longer have to process their animal feed or their byproducts into animal feed, it reduces their electricity bill. So this multi-criteria decision analysis approach tried to balance those benefits and drawbacks. And that led on to a further piece of work where we expanded this analysis in a broader system. We looked at 21 different combinations of 5 technologies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3, at a large distillery in Ireland. The 5 main criteria we considered were the economic elements, so the net present value. We also looked at environmental elements in terms of project carbon saving, the levelized cost of abatement, the euro spent per tonne of CO2 saved, discounted payback period, the upfront capex cost per tonne of CO2 spent, and a percentage reduction in Scope 1 emissions to see how these systems align with the distillery's goal of reducing Scope 1 emissions in their sustainability plans. To assess this, we used 4 different criteria weighting regimes, different perspectives on which criteria were more or less important. And we also used 5 different multi-criteria decision analysis methods because all of these criteria are in different units. You can use multi-criteria analysis methods to combine them together and provide an overall ranking of your decarbonisation technologies. And we also accounted for some uncertainty and stochastic elements in this, where we use Monte Carlo simulations to vary the input parameters into the model, be they net present value or the weights of the different criteria, to see in a probabilistic sense which pathways would perform well and which pathways would not perform well. So that's a whistle-stop tour of some of the innovations in terms of previous research projects that I've been involved in. And I'll now hand over to my good colleague, Dr. Orchardman Bowes.
Thank you, Richie, Dr. O'Shea. And so if it's okay, I'll ask you to go forward with the slides, if that's okay. Yeah, no, I'll so if you go back, I'll just give you an introduction. So thanks everybody, and thanks to the organizers for inviting me to speak here. So I am Orchardman Bowes. I'm an LLA lecturer in process and chemical engineering in UCC, having completed a PhD here. My background is in mechanical engineering from Jalpur University in Kolkata, India, and then in Sweden and Italy. My main research work is around circular bioeconomy and industrial symbiosis, and I also do quite a lot of process design and feasibility assessments, including techno-economic and life cycle assessments. And below are the 4 research projects: CABI, Emerge, Entire, and Revere, which I am currently leading, funded by national funding agencies in Ireland. So next slide, please. So sustainable biomethane is needed for a renewable future, and there are targets which are set by both the European Union and Ireland, the government of Ireland. And you can see both of these targets are very steep and 10 times increased between 2021 and 2030. So to get to these amounts of high biomethane, we need to produce sustainable biomethane, because if it's not sustainable, then that biomethane is not will not be accepted for use. So what is sustainable biomethane that we talk about, that the target needs to be reached? That is, a biomethane must reduce 80% emissions from heat if it's replacing natural gas in heat. It must reduce 65% emissions if it's replacing natural gas in transport, and then it must be available at competitive prices. So next slide, please. So if we look at the conventional anaerobic digesters to produce biomethane, we see that there are loads of feedstock available to produce biogas. Then there is the biogas upgrading, which is to remove the carbon dioxide and maybe H2S and other pollutants. And then there is digestate as biofertilizer. However, there are some issues with each of the two elements of it, the digestate and the biogas upgrading. The conventional biogas upgrading, such as water scrubbing or amine scrubbing or pressure swing removals, are costly. They have problems of scaling. The marginal abatement costs become very high because they are costly, uses lots of chemicals and energy. And then in many cases, the CO2 is released back into the atmosphere. So the sustainability is reduced. And then we talk about digestate as a biofertilizer. However, that fertilizer has lots of nitrates and nitrogen and phosphorus in there. So if we land spread it without any regulations, then it will lead to problems such as nitrous oxide emissions and eutrophication. And this is a big challenge in Ireland and within the EU. So what we are focusing on in our research group is alternatives of biogas upgrading, so more sustainable biogas upgrading, and alternatives for digestate management besides land spreading. So I'll take you into a couple of technologies we have been looking in for each of the two. The first one is photosynthetic biogas upgrading. Now, this is something I did my PhD on, and now we are currently leading a research project on. So instead of doing physicochemical separation of carbon dioxide, what we are doing is we are using a carbonate bicarbonate cycle, which is enabled by microalgae to produce an AD biorefineries where the carbon dioxide in biogas is utilized by microalgae to produce high value products, either by itself or in a biorefinery, and then the biogas is upgraded to biomethane. So in the next slide, so you can see here the carbon dioxide is bubbled in a bubble column, a very well-known technology. Because this is a very highly alkaline environment, pH over 9, the carbon dioxide gets absorbed as bicarbonates. The sulfur H2S is also removed, and then the microalgae in the presence of light can take up bicarbonate. Now, all species cannot take, there are only few species which can take bicarbonate as their preferable carbon source. So we have to do some species screening. And then once it takes up the bicarbonate, it raises back the pH. So the other bicarbonate is converted back into the carbonate and the cycle continues. So we call it a carbonate bicarbonate cycle. And we have published over the last 6 years significantly on this technology, both from optimizing the bubble column, finding the correct species, and writing up on how we can see the whole picture in terms of the biorefinery systems when this is integrated to anaerobic digestion. So in the next slide, you will see an initial feasibility assessment that we performed where we produced biomethane via photosynthetic biogas upgrading. The microalgae was spirulina, which is a high value food, and then the biofertilizer was digestate. And we did a detailed economic environmental assessment, and we found out that with economic allocation, the biomethane can be produced at less than 10 grams of carbon dioxide per megajoule, which is more than 90 or around 90% emission reductions as compared to natural gas emissions in transport. And we could produce the marginal abatement cost was negative for a 3 megawatt plant. It becomes positive for smaller scale systems, but it's still lower than the carbon dioxide price. And by this, we have shown that if this could be applied and we can sell microalgae for human food, we can produce biomethane at 3 cents a kilowatt hour, which is a price which was before the war in Ukraine broke out. So without any subsidies, we could run very cheap. We could produce very cheap biomethane. And this is primarily because the spirulina is actually giving the bulk of the revenue. It's a very high value product. So we looked, based on that, we did so that was not the end of the technology development. We had 4 key questions, and that has led us to the CABI project, which is developing cascading biomethane, biochemicals, biofertilizer systems for a circular bioeconomy in Ireland. So how do we scale up the bubble column? Local microalgae species is very important because most spirulina species are tropical. So if we had to grow or do the biorefinery in Ireland, we would need some species which grows at lower temperatures. So what is the biorefinery configuration? What products should be produced? And then what is the business model? So how should this ownership be? And so this is the CABI project funded by the Department of Agriculture and Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, and in collaboration with Dingle Hub. And we are doing this project in a deep tea model, which I will show in the next slide, that we are going into the lab, but we are also running lots of sustainability assessments, scale up policy roadmaps, multi-criteria decision analysis, and we have 3 PhDs in the project, 1 senior postdoc and 1 senior researcher. And our first paper has come out a couple of months ago, where we have looked at optimal species for the Irish context. So in the next slide, I will talk a little bit about what we are doing with our digestate. So this is the Emerge project, which is coming to an end in 5 days' time. So in this project, we are talking that we are taking the digestate and we are either pyrolyzing it, so drying it and then pyrolyzing it, or hydrothermal carbonization to produce hydrochar. And this biochar, these 2 forms of biochar, we are looking at using as a novel adsorbent to remove emerging contaminants like PFAS or dyes or antibiotics, or we are looking to replace graphites, because graphite is a critical raw material, and biochar or biocarbon, when you engineer it, can replace graphite as a highly conductive material. So this is a project that we had been doing, and Dr. Schwenning and Dr. Deepa Sachan are the postdoctoral researchers in the project, and we had been producing lots of different biochar. And what we were found out that biochar at 700 degrees and 90 minutes was the best. However, in terms of the surface area and conductivity, however, the biochar was extremely large variations. So we did a lot of treatment, and we have ended up doing acid treatment with different acids, and we have consistently produced biochar with surface area almost 400 meters square per gram. And we can also see that, so we can also see that, Richie, if you could minimize your, yeah, perfect, thanks, sorry. So you can also see that biochar is being used for very, very high, for example, high applications. For example, here you can see at the bottom that it is used for digestion, and it's sold for 16 euros 12 grams, which comes to 1.33 million euros per ton, which shows the potential for biochar. So we have been taking biochar, in the next slide, please. So we have been, so what we do is just to show that we have lots of different furnaces, and we do all different types of characterization of biochar, including surface area analysis to X-ray diffractometry, Raman spectrometry, and everything else. So this is just to show the capacity we have in the lab. And the next slide, please. So this is what we have been doing. So we have been taking the pristine biochar, converting that, or engineering that, and looking at design of experiments to remove a suite of different emerging contaminants. And we have got very good results when we looked at, these are initial results, when we looked at removing ibuprofen from wastewater, or removing copper and lead, which are heavy metals of problem in Ireland especially. So in the next slide, this is so taking the work that Dr. O'Shea mentioned previously forward on adding biochar that Dr. Ning did in a thesis, but here we are replacing the graphite electrode with biochar coated electrode. Again, so what we have not presented any result here, which is because it's currently in preparation, but we have got significant beneficial results. So instead of graphite electrodes, which is a critical raw material, we can now 3D print bioelectrodes made of biochar from digestate and improve the biogas production in anaerobic digestion. So a great step forward in circularity and sustainability. And lastly, this is the new project which we have started. Dr. David Wall is the lead in there, looking at the markets of carbon dioxide and digestate from anaerobic digestion. So really the biorefinery of anaerobic digestion. And I am currently leading the work package, which is looking in the next slide, which is looking at producing biochar for fertilizer. And in this biochar, if you look at the second pathway, so we are separating the solid and liquid fraction of the digested. The liquid has lots of nitrates and phosphates. So we produce the biochar, and then we use the biochar as a filter bed to filter out the nitrates and the phosphates. So we can hopefully produce a more specific biochar, a more focused biochar that will allow us to produce a better, so biochar, a complete fertilizer. So we shouldn't be needing any nitrates or phosphates supplementation. So we will be running potting trials with our colleagues in our School of the Biological, Earth and Environmental Sciences. And again, we'll run techno-economic and life cycle assessment. So in my last slide is just a quick snapshot of all the projects we have been doing across the value chain of anaerobic digestion. And look, I myself and my colleague, Dr. Richard O'Shea, would be very happy to take any questions that you might have. So thank you for allowing me to present, and hope.
No, thank you, Mr. Bose. Thank you, Dr. Roshi, as well. I think we're a little over time, so I will allow Mr. Monga to continue. And then we could just take questions for both the sessions right after his gets over. I think it should be about 20 minutes from now. I would like to welcome Mr. Monga, who's a senior advisor and policy director at the World Biogas Association. He's previously worked as a visiting emeritus research fellow and senior advisor at IISA, and prior to that, he worked as deputy executive secretary of the UN Convention to Combat Desertification, director of energy and climate change of the UN Industrial Development Organization, and sustainable development advisor and chief of energy and environmental program at the UNDP. He's held senior positions in the government of India and state government of Himachal Pradesh, and has authored multiple books and presented technical papers as well. I would now like to hand over the floor to Mr. Monga. Thank you.
Thank you, Isha, for this kind introduction. Good afternoon, colleagues. Isha, can you put it on my slides if you can help me? That will be great.
Yes, Mr. Monga. Just give me 1 second.
Colleagues, I am working with World Biogas Association as senior advisor and policy director, and of course, I lead a team of very talented policy leads as well as analysts and technical team headed by Kavya, Karina, Flavio, Gareth, Gamze, and of course, Thibaut. So these 6 people, we are working together, and of course, we are having another colleague joining on Making Biogas Happen program. Thank you, all speakers. You have made my job much easier, because many slides which I wanted to mention in more detail or explain more detail, I will try to just skip through very quickly. World Biogas Association, just to introduce ourselves, we were founded 2016. We are the apex platform for all associations starting from UK, USA, and Europe, of course, with 20 founding companies. As of now, we represent more than 100 organizations, including national associations, UN agencies, and of course, some philanthropic organizations also. And we are accredited to UNFCCC, REN 21, as well as CAC, AC, and of course, GHG protocol. We are very much part of that. And we are very happy that we are part of Global Biofuel Alliance. Thank you, Isha, and thank you, colleagues from Global Biofuel Alliance, for inviting us for this presentation. Next, please. What is our evolving vision? As a World Biogas Association, we look at the world where sustainable biogas is integral to climate, energy, agriculture, and waste solutions, where we connect the dots, where WBA, as a definitive global voice in circular economy, member champion, and essential enabler. And of course, our synergies are with our mission, where we are looking at global biogas ecosystems, bringing convening members, nations, industry to unlock biogas full potential for a decarbonized, circular, and sustainable future. Next, please. Let me start with other speakers also mentioned, as humans, we produce almost 105 billion tons of organic waste every year. And surprisingly, only 2% of that is cycled as of now. 98% are not recycled. And of course, we feel that anaerobic digestion, like others also mentioned, are really one of the fastest, most effective natural way of reaching net zero, and of course, nature-based solutions. By recycling all available organic waste, it is possible to meet 50% of global methane pledge and of course reduce GHG emissions by 11%. Other colleagues already mentioned. And of course, it can be almost 5 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. And you can see on my right side that how whole waste are really there, which are not utilized at all as of now. Next, please. We are talking about almost global market trend markets. We'll really look at it. We are talking about 40 billion cubic meters of natural gas equivalent or biogas being produced, primarily for electricity and heat. Bernard already mentioned that in their report. Basically, biogas to biomethane transport sector is becoming the most, where the trends are coming very fast to decarbonize transport sector and also national grid. 10 billion cubic meter biomethane, of course, produced globally, which is almost 0.2% of natural gas demand. But there is a challenge now how we look at biogas, biomethane, and bio-CO2 also as raw material producing e-methanol, bio-LPG, and of course, renewable dimethyl ether, which is what molecule RDME we talk about. There's a future market when we talk about physical molecules. Next, please. We are talking about investment in global biogas market. We look at the trends and we find that as current, the investments are hovering between $2 to $3 billion per year, but it is moving so fast, 8 to 10% growth is expected, and it will reach almost $15 billion annually by 2050. But we feel that market will really becoming mature onwards by 2030, 35, like other renewables. Demand for biogas methane will double as per the now. When we look at, you can say between 23 and 35, emissions intensive industries, we feel they are turning to biogas and biomethane as a captured energy alternatives. And of course, government and industry are developing very good public-private partnership models, collection hubs and digital platforms for logistics so far as feedstock is concerned, but also when we talk about FOM or biodigestate. Next, please. We are talking about national biomethane production targets, and that's where we are trying to look at some strategic instruments. I will not go into more details of European Commission. I think colleagues already mentioned that one of the speakers in great detail or Repower EU. On India, Ashish also mentioned very clearly, but India has a very ambitious mandate of 5% biomethane compressed and channeled natural gas by 2030. It's a huge task. And of course, Brazil is also moving very fast with their CGOB directives, which is coming through very clearly from next year onwards. Next, please. We are talking about how emission trading systems and schemes, how it's getting linking. Ireland, I was very happy to see how some of the researchers have given very good pointers there. But Ireland is also one of the countries where national biomethane strategy provides subsidies up to 20% of capex with a maximum of 5 million euro. On the other hand, Italy is almost as a country providing subsidy up to 40% of investment cost within European Union at least from the National Recovery Resilience Plan. Next, please. We are talking about, I just picked up a municipality of Milan because when we talk about segregation of organic waste, we wanted to know what are the best practice model within Europe. So Milan came out on the top, one of the few cities doing very well. Swedish city of Malmo is also really working very fast on that side. But we are very happy to see that many countries in Latin America, including Brazil and Caribbean, have really developed very strong, or you can strategic joint roadmap for closing open dumps, preventing landfills, and moving more towards anaerobic digestion. Next, please. When we talk about biogas sector, and it is so obvious, the feedstock is there, and we are just using 2 to 3% of that. Why biogas sector is not accelerating? What are the main challenges? And we try to look at all host of challenges, opportunities. We could put them in 3 areas. One is technical, operational, and maintenance challenges. Plants with low yield and environmental performance. And many speakers already mentioned you start up almost with 20-30% of performance, but it goes up to 60 to 70%. But unless it crosses the 90%, I feel that can never become a commercial model, and that's what our all report shows. there's again a very strong lack of human resource qualification operators, database information to the industry to scale up. And also we found that most of the plants around the world, when we visited them, informal, formally, we found and safety and standardization efforts are really not up to the mark in most, if not all. Some plants are already there. We also found most countries have very fragmented policies, agencies and ministries. In account, when we talk about India or Brazil, there are at least 4 to 5 ministries are involved so far as biogas and biomethane sector is concerned. Number of agencies, and then it becomes further compounded when you talk about state level agencies and of course at the city level, if we take city as a subnational. And of course, variations in regulations between council, provinces, and of course cities. And one of the areas in Europe, at least, or UK also, we saw that there were huge delays in getting permitting or obtaining licenses. Still, while a lot of subsidies are being given, we feel that there's a very high capex cost and, of course, limiting financing options for new startups or entrepreneurs in this sector. Next, please. So how do we construct hundreds and thousands of high performance and reliable biogas plants along with necessary infrastructure within next 5 years? I give you an example. Ashish mentioned in his presentation, we have 110 large scale compressed biogas plant in India, and the target is reaching out to 5,000 between now and 2030. And similar is the case on the global south. And I feel, and including Europe, we feel that's very important that how we really look at and construct very high performing and reliable biogas plants with all sustainability, safety, and environmental safeguards in place. Next, please. Looking at this option, we partnered with in 2024 with Global Methane Hub and other partners, including Total Energy and GSD Canada, and we came up with program, what we call flagship program, Making Biogas Happen program. In phase one, through 1 year very participatory approach where we consulted over 50 countries. We looked at most of the organizations and reached out to all stakeholders, including top experts in this area. And then we came up with 2 deliverables. One was Global Biogas Regulatory Framework, and other was Anaerobic Digestion Certification Scheme International. And under Global Biogas Regulatory Framework, we have 9 pillars which have very clear best practice models for local and national government to encourage regulatory and policy harmonization and investment in best practices, policies, and technologies from around the world. We should not reinvent the wheel, especially in global south, based on good practice model from west. And within west also, of course, many countries are different phases of developing their biogas and biomethane sectors. Certification standards, we feel there's a lack of global level certification and standards. Even if they'll be voluntary, it's time to really look at how we can customize and bring out these certification standards right up to national level and state level. And this becomes very important when we talk about emission trading schemes and other things, because the certification scheme will start linking to that with a tailor-made life cycle assessment methodology. Next, please. Under Global Biogas Regulatory Framework, we covered 9 pillars. It covers right from international, national policy framework, feedstock policy, biogas utilization, digestate policy, gas quality regulations, which become very important when we talk about national grid and its utilization, technical and operational quality standards, permitting regulations which differ from country to country and how we can harmonize and learn from that, planning policy, which is a starting point when we really look at biogas, you can say action plans in most countries, and looking at also health, safety, environmental protection. While we were very happy to see in some plants they were already in place, but most plants which were set up earlier, we feel this is one of the areas which needs a lot of attention, because anything going wrong on this side will bring very bad name to the technology and whole ecosystem in years to come. Next, please. We also looked at anaerobic digestion certification scheme, and we looked at 11 modules there: site information understanding, managing health and safety risk, staff training, process monitoring, maintenance of plant, kit infrastructure, procurement services. That is the entire value chain. We are talking about managing environmental risk, cross-contamination, especially on digestate as well as feedstock. Digestate management becomes very important part of whole value chain. Biomethane process, how propagation is done. Of course, most important area which emerged on our discussion with national government was life cycle assessment methodology. Now, all these modules, as well as 9 pillars, have been finalized and they are put on our website. So all of you can access that. They are around each module and each pillar, especially pillars are 35 to 40 pager with 2 pager of summaries. So we'll be very happy to share that link to all of you. And of course, you can visit our website also to have access to all these documents. Next, please. So now we are already entered into making biogas happen phase 2. And that is also, we must thank our global partner, Global Methane Hub. And what we are doing it, if we have done this lot of work through with our partners, experts, and national government around 50 countries, we are focusing now on dissemination and outreach and adaptation and integration. And this is where we are really focusing as of now. The photo above is our Charles Morton, our CEO, and of course that was at India Energy Week, beginning of this year. And of course, I was in Brazil recently to discuss with the state of São Paulo to look at adaptation, integration of our global best practice models. Next, please. As of now, we are focusing on 4 areas, and we have selected 2 countries for obviously for their huge potential and a lot of ambitious targets. And I was very happy to see from Alexandro and from Ashish saying very good comprehensive approach, including challenges and opportunities. Under phase 2, we are looking at outreach and dissemination. We are looking at adaptation, basically how we can really roll it out at the sectoral plans and climate plans and development plans in these countries. And by choice, we are focusing on city level and state level because we feel that national level things are moving, even if they are slow in some countries. But more action is required at the state level and, of course, city level. And here we are trying to build a local biogas ecosystem that way. We are also looking at capacity building, training, resource development for local expertise. We find the way the expansion of biogas sector is taking place, capacity building is very, very important. And I also feel there's a very strong linkage we require here with academia, especially universities, where a lot of research is going on. I was very happy to see from colleagues just before me speaking of the excellent research they are doing on their various models, including biochar. And that is a very, very fabulous, very, very wonderful news for all of us. But 4th area becomes very important, how each country should look at standardization, including technology benchmarking, ADCS certification standards, and of course, LCA methodology. Because even if we have come up with some global standards and certification scheme, how to dovetail down to a national level, because it will be a voluntary scheme, and how countries can benefit in their expansion program. Next, please. How we are looking at this making biogas happen phase 2, which started in February this year, and we try to finish it January next year. We are looking at how we can present our making biogas happen program. This is the occasion again today we are doing that. We are trying to establish partnerships to make action on the ground. And here we are focusing in 2 countries. In Brazil, we are looking at São Paulo and Prana and Metasul, 3 states. In India, as of now, we are looking at Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat. And of course, Indore city is very keen already to sign MOU with us because Indore city is one of the cleanest city in country like India, which has very strong on waste segregation at household level. And there's a 5 ton of organic waste plant being run by a private company. And that's where we want to focus on make it ADCS compliance in months ahead. We tried to customize key elements. Again, I said that all elements may not be relevant for all countries because they are different stage of biogas industry development. We'll work on that. We are organizing workshops, webinars, and we'll be very happy to join hands with Global Biofuel Alliance to really look at that. And we are also trying to have a special event on making biogas happen phase 2 at a global, especially in COP30. We will try to bring some partners who are present here as speakers there if they also join us there. Next, please. This is simply one of the MOU we assigned to the state government of São Paulo, and there we are trying to work on the excellent work done by eBiogas, CA Biogas, and Institute 17, and we are looking at working on a biogas action and implementation plan. If action plan elements are already ready, we must be ready with implementation plan. And for there, we are trying to bring some global funding, including from Jeff, for implementation of those policies and plans in place. Next, please. And let me conclude. We really look at our Making Biogas Happen flagship program from World Biogas Association. While other points are very clear, alignment with climate targets and ensuring business model becomes very important. Number 3 and 4, national policies, how they can link up with standards and certification. This is where we would like to really work very closely. I was very happy to see from European Renewable Gas Registry, and that's how we will like to see how different markets will work and schemes will work, and that's where LCA methodology will become very, very important for us to look at. Social acceptance and economic empowerment. I was happy to see that Bernardo from IE mentioned about small and others biogas plants, and we feel gender issues, especially women in biogas, becomes a very important area, and for youth, for job creation. Quality standards, global linkages. We're trying to link with global protocols, GHG protocol, global conventions. We are linking with the regional, you can say, commissions, and of course at national and state level. And that's where we feel that GBA, or alliance with the Global Biofuel Alliance and Global Methane Hub, are very good examples for coming together to really focus on making biogas happen, and a practical, pragmatic approach where we are connecting the dots. We are really moving very forward to roll out and scale up biogas industry and biomethane market in real sense. Next. So I would like to thank you here. The whole motto is Mission Biogas, Mission Possible. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Monga. That was very, very helpful. I will now move on to questions. I think we have some questions for Dr. Roshia. Do I have you with me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Dr. Roshia, there is a question for Mr. Bose, maybe if you could take it. Is there any impact of siloxane observed in the grid? Any purification system that was involved?
Sorry, can you replace that? Is it the impact of siloxanes in the biomethane,
Yes.
is it? In the and unfortunately Dr. Bose isn't here, he had to leave. In terms of the analysis, we didn't test for siloxanes in the microalgae upgrading system. It was primarily looking at reducing and removing CO2, ammonia, and hydrogen sulfide. So siloxanes is not something that we have assessed in this microalgae upgrading process.
Got it. How are you doing pre-treatment of algae for HEFA feed? Ujjwal.
I will need to give that question to my colleague, Dr. Bose, because it's not my area of expertise, but
Sure.
we can address the questions that I can't answer if we can email you back, and you might distribute the answer to that question, if that makes sense.
Sure.
But I can't give that answer because I don't know.
That's absolutely fine. What kind of feedstock is being used for the biochar research? And is there any interest in doing studies in India since there is so much biomass surplus?
I think, again, yes, there would be interest. Dr. Bose is from Kolkata. The feedstock that we've used for biochar production is a mixture. So some of it is from digestate that was sourced from operational anaerobic digesters that are processing food waste and agricultural manures or slurries. Some of the digestate comes from lab scale anaerobic digesters that were processing distillery byproducts. And other biochars that we've assessed in our laboratory come from whiskey barrels or straw or willow. But I think the work that Professor or Dr. Bose was specifically looking at was digestate from digesters processing food waste and animal manures.
Got it.
And yes, in terms of collaboration with anyone in any country that's willing to look at biochar production, we would be very open to that.
Great. There's another question on how much yield of spirulina or algae and methane was obtained.
I cannot give you the specific answers to that now. I feel a lot of these questions I can't give the precise details on. We can share some of those precise numbers from Dr. Bose's PhD to you if you are happy to distribute that to the attendees.
Sure, we'll do that.
But from the top of my mind, I cannot give those numbers.
That's completely fine, Dr. Rashia. So I think this one last question on maybe Mr. Monga, you could also take this. What do you feel is the future of biogas CBG in India? Private, public, or taken up by the development sector? And second part to that question is that without guaranteed offtake for smaller plants, do you think India will be able to decentralize CBG?
Okay, I think if you really look at all policies and plans in place by Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, Ministry of New and Renewable Energies, I feel future of biogas CBG is very, very bright. In fact, like I mentioned that our Prime Minister in India has declared that at our India Energy Week last year that will be 5,000 CBG plants by end of 2030. So it's a huge, huge target from 110 as of now. I see, and remember, India is 1.4 billion people. So as humans, also the organic waste, especially in cities, the feedstock is ready to be answered. Of course, crop residues become very important sector, including investment and others. Offtake, absolutely, you're right. I'm very happy that when we look at that, public sector organizations like Indian Oil, GAIL, Bharat Petroleum, Hindustan Petroleum, all of them are geared up to really give a push, especially coming up with pilot projects. I understand most of the public sector are coming 25 plants each, but on the other hand, I feel major push will come from private sector. That is where a lot of investment will come, technology will move. Big players like Reliance, Adani's, and others, they're already putting up $1 billion plus plant, investments in this sector in next 5 years or even earlier. I feel also this is a very important area where India will require large-scale CBG plants, but at the same time, given countries are so huge, we can also look at decentralized CBG plants or medium and small-scale biogas plants, meeting cooking needs or having a decentralized energy systems. So it will grow on both sides, but I feel on the commercial side, it will be CBG plants linking to national grid, both for energy production and for other various industrial use. So, and replacing, of course, huge import, which India is dependent on bringing fossil gas from abroad. So I think next 5 years, working in this area of renewable for last 30 years, there were time for wind, small hydro, solar. It's time for biogas. Within biofuels, along with, of course, ethanol and hydrogen. But biogas sector, CBG sector will grow fastest. This is my belief. Thank you.
Got it. I think that's all for today. Thank you everyone for joining in. Many, many thanks to our generous speakers for giving us their time and their knowledge. Yes, I hope we will see you again at other GBA events and continue to engage with you. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you to all the participants for joining in and engaging with us and making this, not just one where you listen in, but there are also active conversations. So thank you everyone for this.
Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues, all speakers. Very
Thank you
nice
very
connection.
much, everyone.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.